Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to another incredible episode of Dream Chasers, Interviews with the Future. Hi, Grandma. Today we're joined by a repeat, should I say, three-time guest here on the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Travis Day, coming to you from Newfoundland, Canada. I'm actually, we're recording this episode on my end in Denver, Colorado right now, but I did rock my Newfoundland shirt, one of the ones that I have in spirit of the interview. And I don't know if
Love it.
to be joining us today. I know Travis has his dog Zeus with him. If you're watching on video right now, we might get some dog action throughout the interview. So there's a heads up for you. Actually, on that note, I know Zeus is a dad now, right?
Yeah, man. Zeus has got some puppies, so they're about 6 weeks old right now. So they're super cute.
That's so cool. I saw you
Yeah.
posting about on Instagram. I saw you posting about the puppies on Instagram, and I've seen you posting about a lot of other cool things on Instagram that we're definitely going to talk about here today. And I
Yeah,
also
man.
want to say congratulations since we last spoke. And guys, by the way, if you just kind of scroll through the Dream Chasers archive, I'm trying to remember. Do you remember what episode numbers you had before, Travis?
No, because I know I've been on twice now, so I'm not sure.
He's been on twice. Look him up.
Repeat.
But you are finding your own voice now too. I saw you launched your own show, which is awesome because I know you were talking about that for a while. So let's actually talk
Yeah,
about
man.
that first, man. What's it been like becoming a host?
Sure. I appreciate it because I know I reached out to you specifically to ask some questions about kind of logistics and just exactly how do you get started. So it's been a bit of a roller coaster. Obviously, you're probably familiar with that. Like when you kind of don't know what you're getting into, but you're starting to progressively learn more and more each day. So I had a buddy here in St. John's that really helped me with that. He's very tech savvy, more so than myself. So uh, yeah, I've been keeping it a bit basic for now. I do a weekly update episode. My podcast, for anyone wondering, it's called the Overton Anchor. And just quick explanation on that: the Overton window is a policy. It's a philosophy about shifting policies and political and social ideas. So if the Overton window shifts one way or the other, it doesn't grow. It stays the same size. So, for example, the best way I explain this to people is politically, if you're considered someone who's in the center of most policies, if the Overton window shifts really far to the left, you may suddenly be considered a right wing type of person. So it's just a way to represent visually and ideologically how things can shift and change over time. So again, podcast called Overton Anchor, and the anchor is a reference to someone in a tug of war that is holding the line. You are the last man. You're digging your heels in. You're going to try to, I guess, effectively pull that anchor or pull that window back, so to speak. So yeah, it's been cool, and I've had a few guest episodes now. I actually had a guest episode with a young man locally who was vaccine injured, went very in depth into that story. That's a long one. I've also had a doctor in Ontario, emergency physician in Ontario, but ultimately it's a week long update, or a weekly update, sorry, about current affairs, politics, right now, the whole COVID situation, things like that.
Love it, man. And the is the video version of that going on YouTube?
The thing is, I'm going to work to do that, but ultimately right now it's in the early stages. So I am doing kind of clips. I think from right now I'm gonna promote and try to market a little bit more and increase my audience by doing little clips of the most impressionable moments, or really good quotes, or whatever else. But ultimately, yeah, I will look to upload full scale episodes, and for my own episodes, I'm gonna look to incorporate clips. So instead of referencing, I don't know if you saw last week, this person said this, I'll incorporate the actual clips into the podcast, for example, like a lot of hosts that I personally listen to, especially about politics.
Sure. Nice. And yeah, definitely going to get a link to the Overton window in the description. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you're at, if you're working out, in your vehicle, wherever you're listening to the show right now, remember to just pause and go take a look at the link to Travis's show. Go ahead and check it out. Subscribe to him. Smash that subscribe button. Smash that subscribe button on our end too. If you're listening to Dream Chasers for the first time, we'd love to have you here. But yeah, so Travis and I, we've gone deep on this topic before. I think it's one that, if you know anything about kind of where I stand it almost even hurts me to say where I stand politically, but that's the best way you can label it. If someone out there wants to label it, so I'm a citizen of the country of Liberland, and Liberland's um, motto is live and let live. And if you want to know more about Liberland, you can go to liberland.org. But that's just a country that I've been I've gravitated to over the past 7 years, and there's a reason for it, and it's because, again, from a just a worldview perspective, there's no better place to be, in my opinion, than in a position of not knowing what's best for other people. I think a lot of us obviously should know, or at least have a feel for what's best for us. But when authoritarian entities try to get involved with daily lives and start telling people how they should live their lives based on what the government thinks is better for them, instead of giving that individual the sovereignty to make their own decision. I mean, look, don't get me wrong, some people actually like that, being told what to do. Clearly that's not Travis or I's style. So here we go. What Travis and I've been digging in on really is not even the Overton window would suggest that we are anti-vaxxers, right? Because there's nothing else to someone who thinks people should have a choice in getting a vaccine somehow gets labeled being an anti-vaxxer. It's always funny. But I think that's really where we stand on this conversation. Is it's a bit over the top when people say, hey, you can't do these certain things unless we've stuck a piece of metal inside of you. And yeah, I'm just not about that. And I know Travis has gone through some crazy times being a Newfoundlander and a Canadian. And this is one situation in my life where, being a US citizen, it's like, people can complain and make fun of us all the time or whatever, because I have traveled around the world and people either love or hate America, but it is more free. And the way Canada has really handled the past 2 years has not been free at all. And it hurts because that's been one thing that I think Canada at least had a stigma of, and especially Newfoundland is, just a country where you could kind of do as you please, quote unquote, with your body. So that's the opening monologue. And now I definitely just want to pass it over to you, Travis, and have you lay down some bars for us for the next clip here of the show. So, I mean, what comes to mind for you based on just what I've shared so far?
Well, man, we definitely resonate on the idea of kind of Lieberland and live and let live, I guess, so to speak. Like that ultimate ideology or moral value is just so important, because otherwise we see the descent that Canada is going into right now. And again, I get polarized, and I have people come at me because they think I'm just purely an anti-vaxxer, or they try to smear my statements, or if I offer any kind of criticism, it's painted. I'm tarred and feathered with this stupid anti-vaxxer brush. And I'm like, I'm not tooting my own horn, but I'm far from stupid, and I'm educated in the medical profession. And I've taken the opportunity and the time in the past 2 years to dig into this stuff. I became far more interested in politics than I've ever been, far more interested in finding sources on all sides of information, whether it is politics or COVID or whatever. And my conclusions are just, again, I speak with authenticity and integrity, and I tell people what my thoughts are. I don't speak for everybody, but again, it gets controversial because people know I'm a nurse, or sometimes I either state I'm a nurse, but I'm not using that to say, as an authoritarian cudgel, like I am a nurse and I know better than you, so believe me. It's to lay it on the table. It's to hand you a dish that, you can sample it however you like, and then come to your own conclusions. Right? It's here's all this information that I've come across. What do you think about this? Let's have an open mind, open dialogue. But Canada right now, man, that is not the way things are going down on a bigger scale. And you're seeing a lot of people are having problems with that, just outraged about it, and rightfully so, because I think the stereotype of Canada would be, a bit of a laid back, kind of, not so freedom loving as America, but still definitely supportive. Like our military and our veterans are, probably looking at the situation right now and thinking, what has happened? We fought for this, and right now we're under, for those who don't know, we're under Emergencies Act after the blades in Ottawa and the Coutts border and the Ambassador Bridge border have been cleared. So we've again, that's a whole rabbit hole. But for those who don't know, simply there's been a massive Canadian-wide movement of, it started with truckers about a vaccine mandate. And again, they'll try and tar and feather and say it's about vaccines and they're just anti-vax. I just saw a new article today saying anti-vaccine protests, but it's mandates. That's what's important. If you've already got your population 85 or 90% vaccinated and you're going to still call it an anti-vax protest, I mean, you're just tooting an ideological horn, right? You're looking to hypnotize your viewers and say that I'm speaking for you because I don't think that you have an open mind enough to discern your own opinions about this. And people are really sick of that up here in Canada. We've had it really hard media wise on that front. Everything toes an ideological line, and if you cross party lines or something like that, God forbid, you use some critical thought and open dialogue, you're immediately tarred and feathered, and you got some people instantly outraged, family, friends that probably won't speak to you. That it's very polarized up here right now. So I'll just say that and kind of go to whatever part you want to about
Yeah.
all that. It's
Well, yeah, one
pretty
thing
crazy.
I always want to highlight on whenever I have you on is because I never thought of it this way until you mentioned it. But coming from the medical profession, one thing that it sounds like is kind of drilled into anyone who's going to become a nurse, doctor, etc., is the concept of critical thinking. And I just want to have you go through the definition of what critical thinking is based on what you've been taught, what it is to you, because it's something that, again, it seems like the only critical thinkers that I have met now are the ones who aren't allowed to speak publicly without getting, shamed or whatever you want to call it. So,
That's
what
right.
is the critical thinking piece that I'm referring to?
Well, critical thinking, and I actually I have a screenshot of this. I'm not going to go look for it right now, but I have a screenshot from my textbook, one of my first year nursing textbooks, 2010, Potter and Perry, Canadian Fundamentals of Nursing. It's like the gold standard of introductory nursing education. And in that book, Critical Thinking, again, it's not a direct quote, but I know that they reference the ability of a nurse to use their knowledge to not always come to the same conclusions as those in authority, to have the autonomy to look at certain things. Say, for example, if a doctor prescribes something and you don't have the same education level as that doctor, but maybe you see it in a different lens, right? It's the ability, say, for example, you've probably seen it on any kind of nursing or medical TV show where the nurse says, hey doc, but what about this blood work level that contraindicates what you just said? Like, do you think we should really do that, or should we try this thing? And then the doctor might say, like, wow, thank you for pointing that out. Yeah, let's try that. That's an example, but critical thinking across the spectrum is to, and I guess the scientific process as well, is to be critical so that your ultimate goal is truth. Your ultimate goal is truth and autonomy to look at things and to say for people, based on my knowledge, this is a problem I've picked out with this, or here's an alternative hypothesis so that we can come to the best treatment possible, right? Like critical thinking, you may be in the eyes of, say, a partisan issue. You may be essentially towing one line. You may be a dissenter. You may look like someone who's out to lunch at first, but if you can explain your positions and back up with data and that kind of thing and make an argument, this is part of the scientific process. It's part of critical thinking. At times, you may be a very small minority. You might not. You might speak up and get slandered, and the same thing, the whole tar and feather. But ultimately, if you have conviction in your opinions, critical thinking is the ability to do it and to show why you're doing it and present something to someone else that may make change or create change. Right. So again, as you said, like we're seeing a lot of it being shut down. If you hear open-minded and critical thinker right now, there's a high percentage chance that person's being censored on social media or is in the eye of the storm, so to speak, of the mob mentality that says like, no, this isn't, you're not following quote unquote the science or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Whereas the science should never be prefaced as a statement like that. Science is always within question, and new hypothesis can actually form a stronger foundation for science.
exactly. How else do you reach new levels, I guess you could say, of knowledge other than questioning what everyone finds to be the standard at the moment? Now, last time we spoke, I know you were under a lot of pressure because the government, or however you want to word it, was basically saying,
Mhm.
hey, Travis, you can't work unless you have this thing.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's a bit absurd. And I know you went through some challenging times, kind of standing your ground, and now you're at a position, I think, where it actually enables you to have even more of a voice based on what I know you've had to go through. But kind of just tell us, what has your story been? I think we had you on early December 2021 or around there. So, we're recording this
Yeah.
late February, early March 2022. Tell us about the last 3 months of your life, and just what's been going through your head.
Yeah, I think that's the perfect place to go next because a lot has changed that, most you're probably aware of. But yeah, so back early December, I think December 17th, we had a policy come into play about the mandatory vaccines. I believe I wasn't scheduled on the 16th or 17th. So I've been on unpaid leave from work since December 15th. It is now February 23rd. So that's zero income coming in for those 2 months. And again, you talk about, this ideological possession. There's people that absolutely cheer that on. That's like, good, you shouldn't be working as a nurse because, again, what we're talking about here is the whole vaccine mandate argument. And I took a stand thinking that potentially, I might get a call back to work, things might change. Our data definitely did change. And we've seen with this Omicron variant, for example, that we've had outbreaks anyway. I was put on unpaid leave, but we were having outbreaks in healthcare facilities. I won't name any, but it's happening. Fully vaxxed facilities with at least double or triple vaccinated people, and a lot of them being triple vaccinated, still having outbreaks, but we're still towing this line. And our Newfoundland government, for example, has been releasing more ads saying, if you want to go bake cookies with grandma, or if you want to play cards, you should have a booster. And it's like, listen, we're beyond that. That's months old. Like, we know we can still spread this thing. If you want to take a vaccine, to me, it seems more right now an individual risk reduction. It's like a preemptive therapeutic. If you think you need it, or you're immunocompromised, or you want it, that's how medicine should always be, then go ahead. My God, take 3, take 4. I don't care. But I didn't want it. And looking at the mortality data and my actual risk, especially given that there's CDC data saying Omicron is much more mild, and what came out of South Africa, which was a less vaccinated country by far, and they moved on fairly quickly, I said, you know what, I still don't think I need this. But however, policies put me in a position where that meant that I sat at home for 8-9 weeks without being able to return to work. And
Meanwhile, the
so,
entire medical industry desperate for work, desperate for
yeah,
workers. It's like it's just absolutely idiotic. It's the best way I
yeah,
could put
yeah.
it.
And on that front, I mean, our union has been rallying for short staffing crisis concerns.
I don't
There,
feel. I'm thinking, like, I don't feel bad for you if you're short staffed. Yo, all right, government, whoever it is, that's
yeah,
putting it, like,
yeah,
I do not
yeah,
feel bad for you one bit. You did this to yourself.
yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, it's all good, man. I say it like, you essentially hamstring yourself, right? You put yourself at a disadvantage, and then you go to the media and say like, oh wow, we're in such dire straits. The union had stated that prior to the vaccine mandate, we were about 500 registered nurse positions short in the province. So we're a very vaccinated province here in Newfoundland. So say, if I don't know what the official number is, but say if we only lost 30, 40, or 50 RNs that said, you know what, I don't want this thing. And I know some of them. I'm close with many of them. So even if it was that much, we're already 500 short. And then we're getting media articles once again about the staffing crisis and the overwhelming of hospitals. I'll tell you, we had, for example, just to put this in perspective for people, we're a province with 540,000 population. So we're not overly big. That's probably like one city in the US or less. You know what I mean? In certain states. So we're 540,000 people. At one point in early January, we had 6 people in hospital across the province for COVID. And Western medical region, our western side of the province, was not drawing routine blood work. They had to cancel routine blood work because the hospitals were too overwhelmed. 6 people. And that's not even 6 in Western. That was probably 2. But you know why? And this is the thing nobody wants to talk about, is because our own policies have put us in a crisis. if you're caring for a patient and that patient happens to test positive, whether they have symptoms, you have symptoms, whatever, you have to isolate. And if you were close with any of your colleagues that day, they have to isolate. So at one point, we had hundreds and hundreds of nurses off, whether they had symptoms or not, fully vaccinated, because again, there's a mandate, and they were sitting at home, not able to work because of contact tracing. So contact tracing has crippled our hospitals more than the singular focus of one respiratory virus. I get it. We have to take precautions. Okay. I get that. But we absolutely crippled our system to the point that we couldn't even draw routine blood work because we had 6 COVID hospitalizations. When at a time, any year prior, we would have probably guaranteed had 6 influenza hospitalizations, and we didn't hear a peep. So ultimately, to wrap up, I guess back to my story on this, last Saturday, I caved in after being off for 8 weeks of no pay, doing what I could to get around that. But either way, financially, I felt I had no choice. So I was effectively coerced into making a medical decision for myself that I didn't necessarily want or need. And I did so, and I took what precautions I could, and supplementation and things that I won't get into. Not going to give medical advice, but anyway, and I took, I will say, the Johnson and Johnson vaccine. So it's a one and done, one course. It's a viral vector, so it's not a double dose mRNA. There's certain things about that that made me feel comfortable. There's other things that were possibly more of a risk. Anyway, that was my choice, my decision. A coerced choice, I will say. I sat in the chair and I told the nurse, I said, I'm here to keep my job and to continue to be a member of society, a functioning member, because otherwise in Canada right now, you're not. So that's ultimately my.
I remember I used this phrase on the last time I had you on. It's do this, or else we'll shoot you, or else we'll put you in a position where you can't, support yourself.
I said that to people close to me. I said, it's either I do this and I'm really bitter about it and it sucks and it weighs on my mind and I have so many mixed feelings about it. It's either I do that, or again, it's not necessarily life and death per se, but I'll be so mentally compromised after 8 weeks of not being able to get back to a career that I feel driven towards, and now having a sour taste in my mouth. It's definitely a lot of mixed feelings, but ultimately, if you can't participate in society, you can't travel, you don't feel like you can leave your own country, you can't maintain your job, and you've gone to school for it and you're in student loan debt for it, you live within your means. So a lot of my bills and things are factored into the money I was making, and then you can't do that all because of one single needle. I mean, it came down to the point where it's like my back was against the wall, and I did what I had to do, I guess, to get by, because otherwise, how much are you surviving if, let's say, I took the very few jobs that I could as an unvaccinated person, work in a grocery store or whatever. I would have had to work 2 jobs and working my life away just to maintain what I had, and then my quality of life would have decreased. So really, like, ultimately back against the wall, total coercion. And I'll just say our premier and a lot of our, health officials and things, they're openly stating it's coercion. Our premier of Newfoundland has stated on multiple different occasions that this passport system, the Vax Pass, that kind of thing, that is a behavior modification tool. That's a direct quote. He also said in a recent briefing about we're loosening our restrictions March 14th. We're getting rid of most things. But he said that the passport was to alter behavior, direct quote, for people to make the right decision. So you've got, and he's a doctor. Premier Fury is a doctor and now politician.
I met him before.
It's wild.
And
yeah.
It's just messed up.
He's given, in medicine, we should all be aware that you don't have blanket statements, one size fits all treatment approaches. And he's saying he's coercing his citizens to alter their behavior to make the quote unquote right decision. Because if you don't get vaxxed, then it's the wrong decision. That's the implication. And keep in mind, Adam, we are the most vaccinated province in Canada, and our outcomes, our cases and our deaths as well are actually going up and up. So
yeah,
there is no,
I can't tell you how many, I know no one wants to talk about it. No one wants to
Mm.
talk about it, but I can't tell you how many random deaths I've known of this past 18 months that don't have a reason. They don't, there's, oh, it was this or
Yeah.
that. Sorry to cut
Yeah.
you off.
And
And I
we,
didn't know that about Newfoundland
oh, it's all
stats. It
good.
just breaks my heart,
Yeah.
honestly.
I wish I could put on the screen right now this graph. One of our CBC reporters here put up a graph, and also a couple of the phrases he used were quite shocking. I believe in the first 5 weeks of January into the first week of February, we had more deaths than we did in the first like 20 months of the pandemic. So people don't realize Newfoundland, for example, we on average in 2017, 2018, we had 30 plus flu deaths, but there was again 35% flu vaccine uptake. There was no major panic. We had hospitalizations. And in the first 18 months of the COVID pandemic, we had 7 deaths from COVID, 7. Right. And now all this is necessary again with a premier who's a doctor saying that we're going to alter your behavior to make the right choice. And we've had more deaths recently in the past month and a half than we've ever had. And we have a high booster uptake. Correlation, not causation, saying that. If this was truly the golden ticket to freedom to get out of then why are we still having so many deaths? And we know that it's spreading. So why was I sitting at home on my ass and not able to work and get back to my career when we were having fully vaccinated outbreaks?
Exactly. And it seems like
right. It's
yeah, I think if we could I know Jeremy, what's up, man? Our editor. I'm gonna have him pause this part of the interview just because for some reason there's a little bit of a delay in the connection right here. It might be on my end. One moment. Boom, there we go. We're back. So of course, right when things are getting hot, right when things are getting heated, the internet decides to give us a timeout. So let's keep it spicy. I was not aware of the probably by some folks bragged about, but in my opinion, the disgusting compliancy that Newfoundland statistically has. I didn't realize it was the most vaccinated province. And you know what? I shouldn't say that because I do stand by my word, which is I do believe if people feel as though they should get this, then then they should get it. So actually, I kind of take that back. I just didn't know. To me, if your vaccine numbers are high wherever you're at in the world, it just means that you have a very passive group of individuals because I don't know, I just think that the data and the question marks are obvious. Can't tell you how many vaccinated people I know now that are also like, heck no, I am not getting a booster. I even heard an interview with someone recently where they were talking about it. It was like a comedy podcast too. But it was like, did you get the vaccine? It's like, yeah, I got the vaccine. It's like, are you gonna get the booster? It's like, no, I'm not getting the booster. It's like, yeah, I'm not getting either. It's like, I didn't get the regular one for my kids either. So it's kind of funny to me. It's like, all right, this person is like, they got it, but they didn't give it to their kids. Why? If you feel so good about it, why didn't you give it for your kids? It is good to hear that they didn't. Based on what I know. But anyways,
and I just to add to that, man, we have part of the reason that I think you can make a statement like that. And again, live and let live. It's everybody's choice. But the fact that our numbers are so high is partially due to actual coercion, right? 94% right now are double vax that are eligible. 94%. And that is not the number that it would have been if there were no passports and mandates. And now you can make the argument that it's better to have that number than 60%. It's like, okay, but at what trade-off to your society when you're coercing people to make a decision, right? And we're still seeing the spread and we're having more deaths anyway. Like we have to factor that in and nobody's doing it. We're not having an open panel discussion with disagreements between doctors or whatever. And we have 200, I believe right now it's probably more, but roughly 280,000 boosters given for 540,000 people total. So that's not even those that are eligible. We have almost 300,000 boosters given. And we're having high cases anyway, and we're having high deaths. So, when do you move to the endemic phase and say, hey, live and let live, do what you want to do. If you want the booster, take it. I mean, if they come around and mandate this booster, Adam, like everything just falls apart because ultimately then you're being driven by again, partisan ideologies and or money or conflicts of interest. It's when your data isn't reflecting that, it's the golden ticket to the end of the pandemic, because it's not that. Like 10 months ago, you might have been able to say that and hope for it. I did too. When it first came out, I hoped that that would be the case, but it's not the case.
Yep.
So
Yep. The numbers show it. And I think that you said something important there. It's like, if at any point in time the booster or some booster became mandatory, I think we would see some massive fight back and challenges. Um,
yeah.
I just got to say, shout out to the truckers. I don't even know the entire story, because I just try to stay in my lane and focus on what makes me happy. Because I know if I get too caught up in COVID stuff, then all of a sudden I'm just kind of in a mood or an energy that I don't want to be in. But I have observed, okay, looking at this working class of individuals, it's a group of people that every day get taken for granted. And you don't want to piss the people off that you take for granted. Just put it that way. I mean, they've started a movement now. And because of that, I think it's actually shown the entire world what's possible when you take a stance. And yeah, to your point, I think Newfoundland's scaling back restrictions as far as travel on March 14th. It seems like the entire country of Canada is. And again, I think Canada is a microcosm of what can happen for every country if you try to do what I guess Trudeau administration just tried to do.
Yeah.
I don't think they expected this to happen, right? I think there's a lot of things that they expected to happen with all of these things. I think the whole honking has just been something that the powers that be did not expect, and it's really cool to see that the people have this much of an influence. And yeah, I'm really just looking forward to seeing how it plays out, because I think things are starting to scale back. I'd say, unfortunately, as things start to scale back, there are many people I know similar to you that, because of the high pressure, got, and they wish they didn't have to be put in that situation. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, what do you think about I guess the next 6 months? Are we going to see a scale back of mandates, or is it going to stay the same?
I think we'll see the provincial stuff scale back, but our own provincial government has said that if essentially it's based on the quote unquote epidemiology. So basically, if we have negative COVID outcomes in the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever, or next fall or next winter, they're essentially saying that they'll do all this stuff again. Right. And this stuff needs to be crumpled up like a paper ball and thrown in the fire. Like these policies, this Vax Pass, let people do what they want to do. Don't threaten their jobs over it. Don't threaten their ability to move in Canada and get on a plane. Justin Trudeau has directly said, we do not want unvaccinated people sitting next to you who have made the right decision. You've stepped up for Canadians. So you shouldn't have to sit next to, essentially what he's implying is this dirty, unvaccinated person.
What he's
When we're
implying is
seeing
that his decision is the right decision. And if you don't agree with his
exactly,
decision, then you're a bad person.
and this is the thing, goes back to there's no one size fits all in medicine, even in pandemic approaches. Just for example, Adam, 2 years ago, or no, sorry, this was 2 years ago, 2020, I believe. There's a Saltwire article and a Telegram article, but basically it's Newfoundland media. They're quoting our health minister, John Hagee, and he still sits on these COVID panels right now in 2022. But anyway, his position back then was when they implemented new healthcare legislation that they could not mandate vaccines because it was direct violation of charter rights, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, similar to the US Constitution. So his quote was that they couldn't do it then for after a bad flu season. I believe it was 2018. Sorry, it was after we had a bad influenza season. He said we cannot mandate vaccinations because it's a direct violation of the Charter of Rights. And then he went on to say, and this is the damning part of the quote, he said, no matter the public health benefit of the vaccine. So that implies that when things change, you don't get to throw your charter out the window. Your constitutional rights are supposed to be founding documents that protect you, not because there's a pandemic all of a sudden that has a similar mortality to the flu flu, especially now after vaccinations, and you're going to continue to mandate them because ultimately that statement, that last little part there, no matter the public health benefit, if they were sterilizing immunity vaccines, which means it stops transmission dead in its tracks, then his argument just 4 years ago was simply, we still can't do that because there's a charter of Canadian rights and freedoms and we have to uphold that because it's foundational, it's fundamental. And now, just years later, he's sitting on a panel advocating for COVID vaccine mandates. And, it doesn't, foundational documents don't suddenly change because you're in a pandemic with a 99% survivability rate. And I've done our case fatality rate, Adam. I'll tell you, I did this myself just about a week ago, was 0.31% mortality. That's across the board of all ages. And that same health minister, Dr. Haggie, has stated to CBC reporters in these COVID Lives panels and whatever, he has stated there have been very few hospitalizations under 50. So as a 28-year-old, I'm coerced to take a vaccine or else I lose my job, despite the fact that I know that there have been very few hospitalizations, let alone deaths. There's been hardly any across all of Canada in children or even people my age, and it's usually with comorbidities. So he makes a statement like that, and we have a 0.31% mortality rate of all ages. We need to protect the elderly and the vulnerable, give people their choices, and go from there, right? And I actually did up when I said the 18 months we had 7 deaths, that case fatality rate was actually higher. It might not sound like a lot because back then Newfoundland had so few cases of COVID, but yet we followed and in line and did all the same lockdown measures. And our case fatality rate back then was about 0.56%. Now it's lower, and we're just ditching restrictions, so it's, again, the quote, follow the epidemiology, is like, okay, so when our numbers are worse than this, we just do all the same things again.
Yeah.
We can't live like that, man.
I
We
think
just can't.
what you just said is something that I was concerned about for, I guess you could say, for the province of Newfoundland and potentially Canada at large, which is, it seems as though there's going to be a scale back in mandates. What do you know? March, the only time of the year from March maybe till what, fall, where anyone else from around the world really wants to do vacationing to Canada. Oh, hey, let's get some nice tourism money. Let's make some money this summer. And then we'll pull the rug on everyone again in the fall. And, I just would not be surprised to see that happen. I hope it doesn't. But that's one thought that has gone through my head, going to what you're saying, which is they're kind of saying, okay, we're going to scale it back, but we've got this lever right here that we might just pull anytime. So
Yeah.
And
even on
Travis, help me out, man. I'm trying to find the positivity here because
even on a federal level, Adam, we have, like I alluded to before, this trucker protest has triggered the Emergencies Act in Canada, which is, just the unprecedented. Since 1988, it has not been used for anything else. That's for natural disasters, any kind of attack or virus or whatever else. So, you look back to any other virus, H1N1, it was not used there. I have documents from British Columbia showing that the H1N1 mortality was actually worse than what we currently have, but no Emergencies Act. It's used for a mostly peaceful protest where people are dancing in the streets of Ottawa. Sure, it inconvenienced some people. But anyway, our prime minister right now has an Emergencies Act that's gave him sweeping power to actually freeze people's bank accounts if they so much as donate $100 to the truckers, the organization. So we have an organization right now in a broad nationwide movement that is, they're trying to categorize it as domestic terrorism. That is happening because they did not anticipate this level of support and a nationwide movement that has captured the attention globally of so many different people. And I'm sure the U.S. is one of them. They're really mad right now because there's over 50% of the funding and donations were actually from U.S. donors. So they're trying to say that foreign influence is funding this white supremacist trucker campaign. It's absurd, Adam. It's blown out of proportion. And back to my previous statements, the Overton window, it's broken. The alarm bells are ringing, and it's like the water sprinklers are spraying. The windows are just blasted out. I don't even know what to think of it anymore.
I have a question for anyone that maybe disagrees with some of our viewpoints here, and it would just be, What is it about, if you're in Canada, CBC, CTV, if you're in the US, if it's I don't even care if it's Fox News. I don't, they're questionable as well. Fox News, CNN, any corporate media, because you guess what? It's really actually becoming less and less mainstream because people are waking up, such as the truckers, and going to independent resources to get their information. I mean, what is it about these traditional broadcasting companies that makes you think that they are telling you the truth? I've seen so much in my short 30 years of life to know that it is nearly impossible to trust any of these resources. I don't get it. So yeah, I would love to know why people trust these puppets of the government. So yeah, definitely cool. If anyone wants to label them terrorists, like, it is what it is. It's the people who believe in true freedom, and you've used the phrase autonomy, and just believing in being able to make a decision for themselves. Those are the ones who are going to gravitate towards something like this. And the more you try to stop it, that's actually kind of the funny thing. It seems like
Yeah.
they're kind of doing everything they can to stop it. It's only empowering the movement more. And so,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
shout out to the
Adam,
truckers.
if I could, for your listeners that aren't aware, some of these, it's almost like inside jokes at this point. I mean, the memes that are coming out of this, the real life memes will last for a lifetime. So the Ottawa police were trying to seize gas canisters and anybody trying to, say, for example, help the truckers. So you had people that were coming to them with gas so that they could keep their vehicles running. And the Ottawa police had an order that they were to take the gas from them so they could arrest people or at least seize their gas canisters if you saw someone walking up the street. So eventually they started a peaceful protest using gas canisters filled with water or just empty gas canisters, and citizens would walk through the streets with gas canisters, these jerry cans, and police would, like, stop them and try to seize it, and they'd say, why? I just have it filled with water. And I saw a video of one guy who had the spout on the end of it, and he was drinking Gatorade out of it as just like a way of saying a F you to authority, right? And that's the epitome of what's happening. They didn't fight back. They didn't, try to attack one of the officers seizing their gas can. Instead, the next day they came out, poured Gatorade in it, and drank it, and said, big F you, because this is too much, right? So that's the epitome of what's been happening in Ottawa. It's absurd.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just thinking of this too. It's kind of random, but I think it's a valid point. I just saw a video the other day, and again, these are videos that I think if you have to go to a website like BitChute, or I think Library is another one that I think has gained a little bit more of a conservative stigma, but still you'll be able to get content there that will get blocked by YouTube. Like, just always ask yourself this too: if there's some information that's being blocked from you by an authority figure, you just have to ask, why is it being blocked? You don't have to believe it, but just ask. So I was on BitChute the other day. Someone sent me a video, and I didn't know this, but apparently the queen has or got COVID or something. And literally in the
Yeah.
in the corporate media clip of her getting her treatment or whatever, she was taking ivermectin.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
literally says
I've seen
ivermectin.
that, man.
Um,
Yeah. The
so
unapproved treatment that you would get flagged for just mentioning it. Even if I posted an academic study showing effectiveness, it would get flagged. WHO unapproved treatments may cause harm. And then it's like, well, tell that to the 95-year-old queen. She's taking
right.
stromectol, which is ivermectin.
And I want to just challenge everyone to think critically on this one too. There's this stigma, oh, the monarchy is over, the queen is just, it's just for fun, like, there's royalty, but it doesn't really mean anything, she's just there. I just highly question that. Why do so many, well, I shouldn't say so many, but there's plenty of countries around the world that still have the queen on your currency, including Canada. So just ask yourself why.
I
Like,
On that note too, I guarantee you, if she issued a statement tomorrow on like current affairs on something, people would take that for granted, or wouldn't. Sorry, they would actually listen to her. She does still have influence. People care that she got COVID, right? They do care. And then it's just a totally mixed feeling right now of seeing in this clip again, where it seems to be she's taking treatment that other people have been demonized for. You've had doctors with their license challenged for prescribing ivermectin. I mean, there's a lot of questionable stuff going on with the regulatory bodies as well. You know, it's definitely not as open-minded as we said earlier about science and the scientific process. If your regulatory body says you can't prescribe that, even though you're trying to do what you think is right for your patient.
Yeah, and you know, my grandma, who's in her mid to late 80s, got COVID recently, and she went and got there's some kind of treatment that, you know, if you turn on corporate media, they say it's bad, don't do it. It's, you know, get the shot instead. But she didn't. She got, it's like monoclonal.
Oh yeah, monoclonal antibodies. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So she got that treatment and was healthy in like, you know, less than 5 days.
Yeah.
In her late 80s. Wow, it's amazing.
More accessible in the States as well. We've had like a shortage, and some of them are very expensive as well. But I mean, ultimately, if it's saving lives, like who are we to restrict any of those avenues? You know what I mean? So
Yep. Yeah. So you don't have to agree with Travis and I on everything we said here today. In fact, I probably actually don't encourage you to agree with everything, because that's the whole goal. Is like, we're not trying to create an echo chamber. We're just trying to create a dialogue that um, that isn't silenced and can hopefully inspire others to just question, and don't just take things based on what you're told to do or what you hear from a source that you have no reason to really be trusting. So
yeah,
we're winding it down here, Travis, but I know, like, as always, it's like, oh, we could probably just keep the conversation rolling for like another hour. What I guess I'm trying to find the silver lining, or where is the hope in all of this. To me, I think the hope is there's more and more data coming out suggesting like this has basically been a big scam. I mean, obviously it's been a big scam, because how many people have around the world have gotten vaccinated, and like it's still a thing. And then you have stories like the Amish community, who pretty much in the US went completely unvaccinated, and they got COVID in like May 2020, and we're back to business by, I think they got it all in like March 2020, and they're back to business by like May or June 2020. We'll go look that up, by the way. Amish COVID. It's crazy how herd immunity actually should work. So anyways, where is the hope? Where's the hope in all this, Travis?
yeah. I think, man, because you asked this earlier, and I danced around like one side of it, but I think overall it's the exposure to the world of differing opinions, and noticing, like, uprooting value structures and looking at it and saying, like, you know, this critical thought. We want to infuse critical thinking and your own discernment and autonomy into every decision you make, and that includes this is an information war, right? When you have media slandering certain things, you know, the whole tar and feather approach, ask yourself why, and try to find the other source that would have a different opinion. Like, even if it upsets you, if you have a different opinion, please just try to go look to the other side and see what they have to say. You know, that's what's ultimately important. And I think the hope right now, for example, Canada's going through a lot right now. It's scary with the Emergencies Act and the rhetoric from our prime minister, and where is the country going? But in hope, you know, in optimism, I look to the fact that I believe this movement and the global uprising saying, you know what, things aren't right here, and we've been controlled for too long, and enough is enough. I think overall that is infectious in a very positive way, because it gives people back their feeling of empowerment and autonomy, and that ultimately is uplifting you out of what has been a very hard 2 years, I would say, no matter where you are. So I think, and this happened in a grassroots sense that was not anticipated. So the responses have been disproportionately brute, and in doing so, you expose your hand, right? If you're fighting so hard to keep your, let's call it, as Eric Weinstein does, the gated institutional narrative. It is the narrative that is pushed by the institutions, and if you stray from it, you know, you're going to get tarred and feathered, so to speak. If you stray from that, and there's such a pushback, and it's totally disproportionate, then what you're doing is you are showing it to people. You are saying, here is my bias. Here is how I've how I've controlled mentally and emotionally you for so long right now, rather than letting you make your own decisions and look for the information yourself. It is again, it is playing the hand way too heavy. And then the citizens themselves can look at that. For most people that aren't, again, super biased about it, can look at it with an open mind and say, you know what, that's right, this is too far, enough is enough. And I do want to get back to normal, to living normally and that kind of thing. And I think that optimism is there. So any more heavy-handed pushes at this point are going to be met with extreme criticism, as they should be.
Yeah, yeah. And another thing coming to mind here to close it out is, there's a lot of resources out there that I'd say I would just caution everyone to be careful with if you are, I'd say, more so in favor of some of Travis and I's thoughts here. Meaning, if you're doing all your communication on Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, I mean, those are great resources for the exchange of knowledge and information. Don't get me wrong, but one place that I've found very, very beneficial and helpful, and a place that individuals can go in a private setting and not worry about all of their information being tracked, and talk about just if you're leaning more the direction that we are on this conversation, and you want to be surrounded by more people that think the same way. Telegram is a great app. I know we connected on there a little bit, Travis. I just want to encourage everyone to download the Telegram app, and even reach out to me after this interview, or Travis. I'd be happy to plug you into some communities there. There's just, if you're feeling alone, there are some really powerful communities of thousands of people having conversations on this topic, empowering others to know, one, that you're not alone, and two, that there's many ways to live a free life still. It's just the simple, statement, knowledge is power. And that's the direction that the world has gone based on this, is like, just subjective, right? But I would say the smart people are flocking to areas where they can go and have smart conversations and not worry about being spied on by Facebook or anything like that. Because there's plenty of evidence. I think like it was like the FBI or someone was recently, there was something in the news recently about a government organization using Facebook conversations to like bust somebody. And yeah, ain't nobody got time for that. So
Same thing in Canada,
yeah.
man. Public health used cell phone data across the country without consent to track
Oh,
location
right,
and
Canada.
behavior, kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Government of Canada did what it was, they admitted
30,
to tracking like 90% of the population's.
yeah, 30 million cell phone location data. Whatever else you can gather from that, but at least the location data, like if you were supposed to isolate or blah blah blah, the movement of people. So this was all again without consent. So how much more is happening? And there is a suppression, as you were saying, dude. You need to find communities where you can, because there is definitely a suppression right now, making you want to feel like you're alone, and making you feel like, for example, there's no nurses or doctors who believe any of this stuff. I guarantee you, I've spoken to many of them. There definitely are. I've spoken to, just in the past couple of days, a cardiologist and ICU specialist who's worked for 30 years, that said that, I agree with a lot of your points, and here's some more. So they want you to believe that that's not happening, that you're not going to connect with other medical professionals who agree, or someone else who has a different point of view. Again, think outside of echo chambers, keep an open mind, and look for those communities, because people will uplift you more now than you probably ever thought was possible. You'll build new bridges every day if you seek them out.
That's right. That's right. And the ultimate statement, I think, of wisdom to always keep in mind is, hey, you know what? At the end of the day, I know nothing, and it's okay. So at the end of the day, everything we just talked about, everything could be completely wrong. We might even just be dreaming right now. So
make your own discernments, your own opinions. Seek every different source. If this is one of them, then look for the opposite source too. Go right ahead. That's your right. You're a free functioning human being, and you have the capacity to look for other options and make your own decisions about what you want to believe.
There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that is Travis Day. Go check out his show, The Overton Anchor. Again, a link for that is in the comments, in the description. And yeah, he's continuing to take it to the next level. So I'm really happy for you, man, on that show as well. Thank you for spending your time with us here today. I know it's valuable because they're probably knocking on your door to come to work right now. um, but
Getting
yeah,
there. We're
sorry, what?
I was just saying we're getting there. I'm almost back. So I think after this weekend, I'll be back to work. But again, going to continue to be a voice. You know, it doesn't
Yeah,
change a thing. Actually, it makes me more of an advocate for anybody out there who is being coerced as well. And just moving on from this, man. Moving on from these last 2 years. Let's get back to the way we lived before.
yeah, love it. Thank you, Travis. Thank you for all you do. Continue to be a voice. Continue to stand your ground as you have, and then yeah, leverage the experiences you had to go through to liberate others. Man, I really appreciate it. Grateful for Nikki, my wife. Shout out to Nikki for connecting us. Thank you. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of Dream Chasers Interviews with the Future. Thank you for tuning in. We will catch you in the next episode. And remember, in all you think, say, and do, take it to the next level.